Hey everyone, I'm Meg West, landscape architect with Arcadia Studio. I'm coming to you today live from the GardenWise television headquarters. I'm the new host of GardenWise, and I look forward to continuing the legacy of the GardenWise guys by providing Santa Barbara residents with practical information about water-wise landscaping, water conservation, and sustainability. In our first segment, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I was sort of casting about in my early 20s, and nothing seemed very appealing, and I needed to make some money, and what I liked to do was garden. So I got a job for a construction company. I was working in the Bay Area at an olive farm. So it was me with the laborers, and we dug holes and watered plants and installed irrigation. I remember one day the landscape architect came out to the job, and they waved their arms around and made all these pronouncements, and then left, and we had to do all the work. And I remember thinking, I want that job. That looks like a good job. So many years later, I actually became a landscape architect, but that was the first time I had ever even known that profession existed. And I think it was the visionary aspect that attracted me, along with the connection to nature. And I saw it in some way dovetailing towards my interest in sustainability. And the amazing thing is the world has become congruent with my beliefs. One of my missions in life has always been to be an activist, but someone who makes an example by doing. So I enjoy to show people what can be done. And television is the perfect medium to actually show how someone can go about walking the walk and living more sustainably. I just want to show people that it's easy, it's not as hard as it seems. Once you make some basic changes in your life and put these sustainable systems in place, it's no harder than living not sustainably. It's just kind of changing your mindset a little bit and looking at things a little bit differently. And everybody can do it. It's not very difficult, doesn't cost a lot of money. So I feel like television is a great way to show people that that's an option. People are looking for those answers right now, especially if it helps them save money. I wasn't so happy about moving back to the burbs, so I took it upon myself to try and see if I could retrofit the burbs and live a sustainable lifestyle here. So that's really what this project was about, to see if it was possible to live green in the burbs. And I think we've done a pretty good job with what we've got. I mean, this is sort of your average suburban home. It's on 1/3 of an acre. It's 1,200 square feet. It's extremely comfortable. And for most people, when they move into a place like this, the systems that are in place aren't helping you be sustainable. But you can just kind of change these little things along the way, the solar system, the double-pane windows, insulation, get rid of the lawn. And after that initial investment of time and money, then everything's in place and living sustainably is sort of effortless. Now that you know a little bit about me, let me show you some of the things that I do to live green in the burbs. Or anything I can do to make your learning experience easier, please let me know. And currently, I think the best way to get most people moving towards more sustainable lifestyle is showing them how much money they can save. Because of what's happened with the recession, people are really concerned about their monthly bills and really wanting to bring down their monthly bills. And all of these things that we're teaching with sustainable landscaping make a drastic impact on that. In this house, we're paying less now for water than we did when it was all lawn, and we're growing over half of all of our food. I mean, that's amazing. People really, whether or not they share my philosophy and interest in sustainability, most people in this country right now care about saving money. This is where our Greywater Laundry to landscape begins, right here in our laundry room in the garage. It's an amazing system because it uses water that normally would just go into the sewer, and it goes to water our fruit trees. So this is how it works up at the top end. It's a 3-way valve that, when it's set like this, as you can see, the water comes out of the pump in the washing machine, comes up here, goes through the wall and out to the plants. If we're using bleach, just turn it like this, send it to the sewer, and do it for that load. And then when you're done, you use your biodegradable detergent again, send it back to the plants, and I'll show you where it's going, right out to the garden. This is where the gray water comes out. It's a little ball valve emitter that can be tuned depending on how much water you want to come out. It's set in an upside down 1-gallon can. It's about as low tech as you can get. So when we do the laundry, the water comes out of the washing machine, it floods into this mulch basin, waters this banana, We're basically turning water that would go into the sewer into food. What could be more amazing than an avocado tree? It takes the nutrients from the soil and turns them into buttery, delicious avocados. My favorite thing to do is to come out here, harvest a fresh avocado, cut it up with some tomatoes and put some bread in there, mix it around with some balsamic vinegar. Makes the best salad in the summertime. This is our composting area, and it's something that just sort of happens. You hear the term compost happens? Doesn't take a whole lot of work, but like everything sustainable, you got to set up the right system so everything's in place. What we do here is collect our lawn clippings, any pruning or anything in this bin, try and cut things up into little pieces, and then when we're actually making the compost in this bin, then it gets layered in. So we'll put a layer of food waste from the kitchen, a layer of whatever's in here, and then a layer of dried leaves or whatever to keep the insects out. And if you stick with that layering system, then you won't get a whole bunch of flies and nasty stuff. You don't want to open this up and have a cloud of flies in your face. I think that's why a lot of people get deterred from composting, because of the oogies. But if you stick with the layering system, it works really well. Here's my cheap and dirty version of a worm bin. It's just a regular 12-gallon Tough Crate from Home Depot. And haven't looked in here in a while. We'll see what's going on. I'm going to see how my worms are doing. Oops, and I'm going to harvest some worm castings today. So these are all good worm castings. That's the worm poop. Awesome for the plants. They totally love it. Let's see if we can see how my little worms are doing. So what I'm going to do to harvest the castings is I'm going to pile this up in a big pile. The worms crawl to the center away from the sun. And then I'm just going to scrape off this outside, mix it with water, and feed it to my fruit trees. Here in Goleta, the climate is perfect for citrus. This lemon tree produces year-round. We fertilize it a couple times a month with some nitrogen and add some chelated iron that helps it absorb nutrients. And this thing, no kidding, it's producing all the time. I bring lemons into work, we give them to our friends, we barter. There's never a lack of lemons in Goleta. These are our rain barrels. They collect water off the roof when it rains. We hooked up the gutter to here and it feeds into this tank, and they're all linked together. When we have 1 inch of rain off of this roof, which is a little over 1,000 square feet, we'll collect over 600 gallons of water, which is more than these barrels can hold. So anytime we get a decent amount of rain, these guys fill up and we use it around the garden. This is a solar inverter. It's the brains of the solar system, and the panels are up on the roof. This is a 5 kilowatt solar energy system, and that produces more than enough energy than we need to live in this green suburban home. During the day, when the sun's out, the solar system is producing energy that then gets sold to the grid, so it's a grid-linked system. At night, when the sun's not out, we're connected to that grid and we can use the energy back. What that means is that when we get our power bill, we don't pay anything each month. So even though it was a significant initial investment, it pays back month to month, and it's part of what keeps our monthly bills low. This is our backyard top bar hive. This is where the bees live. They do tons of work cruising around to all the plants in our garden, and they make honey for us. Harvest about 6 or 7 pounds of honey out of this hive each year. It's a top bar hive, which is a much more natural way to beekeep. The traditional Langstroth hives have frames, and the bees have to build their comb inside a frame. But in these, the bees actually just build a free hanging comb. It's got a top bar, and the comb kind of hangs down. You can see the edges of the comb here. Some of it is honeycomb, where they store the honey and cap it off to feed them in the winter. Some of it is brood comb, where in the summertime they lay their eggs and produce more drones to fly around and make us more honey. And it's been such a fun addition to our little green the burbs suburban lifestyle here, because they're just so fascinating, and the behavior of these insects has brought so much to our garden and to our lives. As you've seen, making your home water-wise and sustainable really isn't that hard. It just takes a commitment to change and digging in the dirt. It helps to know something about plants, so we created a new segment called the Plant Rant. Today you'll learn all about the remarkable Manzanita. Get ready, the Manzanita will surprise you.
What's your Plant Rant?
People, get with it! Are you in tune with the plant kingdom? Do you fathom the fabulousness of flora? Vibe with vegetation? There are about 300,000 flowering plant species on Earth. On each episode of GardenWise, we'll pick one and help you get to know it better. This knowledge will help you choose the right plant for the right place in your garden. Today, you'll get the scoop on Manzanitas, a drought-tolerant evergreen native plant. Manzanita is the common name for the genus Arctostaphylos, Arctostaphylos. The etymology of the name tells us a lot about the plant. Arctos means bear in Latin. The berries are a favorite food of bears. And staphule means a cluster of grapes, referring to the clusters of berries that hang from the plant in the summer and the fall. Arctostaphylos, Arctostaphylos. Say it with me. Arctostaphylos. That wasn't that hard, was it? If you forget the Latin name, you can always just call them Manzanitas. Manzanita means little apple in Spanish. The plant's red berries look like little apples. Manzanita is an important part of our native plant ecosystem in Santa Barbara County, but its range goes far beyond our neighborhood. There are Manzanitas in every wild, coastal, and mountainous ecosystem from Oregon to Baja below 5,000 feet. There are 106 species of Manzanita worldwide, 95 of which are found in California. Manzanitas are tough, amazing plants. Now, I don't mean amazing in the way that you would talk about, say, a really good sandwich, like, that was an amazing egg salad sandwich. Oh! I mean they are actually amazing, astonishing. Take, for instance, how they have adapted to live in fire-prone ecosystems. Following a fire, they sprout from underground and regrow from what seems to be a charcoal stump. That is amazing. They are also one of the most drought-tolerant evergreen plants. They stay green year-round even without any supplemental irrigation once they're established. Amazing! Manzanitas range from small trees to flat ground cover. Once you get to know the plant, you'll find it easy to recognize. Its sculptural mahogany-colored bark stands out in any landscape. Its leathery leaves are small or medium-sized. They range in color from deep green to gray. Overall, the plant has a very tidy appearance. Manzanitas are also an important source of food and forage for wildlife. They provide nectar for butterflies, hummingbirds, and native insects. Animals eat the foliage in the fruit of the manzanitas. Birds, bears, and other animals eat the ripe berries. Manzanita also provides shelter and habitat for birds and other small animals. So, manzanitas are tough, beautiful plants. They have provided forage to humans and wildlife for centuries. How best to bring them into your garden? There are so many different types of manzanitas. Trees, small trees, shrubs, ground covers. There's one for your every need. Need to screen out your neighbor's fence? How about Howard Mcminn manzanita? Need a low-maintenance, low-water-use ground cover? Pacific Mist manzanita will do the job. Need a specimen plant that will stand out and provide interesting color and texture year-round? Take your pick of manzanitas that grow to be small trees and large shrubs. Remember, the soil must be well drained. The most common reason that manzanitas suffer is overwatering. Some types are adapted to clay soil and some to sand, but they all need good drainage. Manzanitas can replace many overused plants in the landscape. Like Raphiolepis, the ubiquitous parking lot shrub, can be replaced with Arctostaphylos Howard Mcminn. Thirsty screening plants like privet or Japanese blueberry can be replaced with larger forms of manzanita. Remember the sustainable gardening mantra: plant the right plant in the right place. Choose Arctostaphylos to combine with other drought-tolerant plants in a sunny location that has good drainage and give it room to grow to its mature size. Never water with spray irrigation, and keep mulch away from the crown of the plant so it stays dry. Be careful not to plant any manzanitas in wet, heavy clay soil, and don't irrigate them in the summertime once they're established. Put this plant in the right place and ignore it completely. It will grow into an amazing evergreen beauty that welcomes birds and butterflies into your garden. You can find manzanitas for your garden at the Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens and at other local nurseries. We will learn all about other extraordinary plants in future episodes. Do you want an idea for a simple landscaping project that'll cut down on garden maintenance and save you money on your monthly water bill? Local landscape architect Robert Adams gives us his take on a new approach to planting in parkways.
Hi, I'm Robert Adams, a local Santa Barbara landscape architect, and we're here today to look at parkway strips. Sometimes these parkway strips are called the hell strip, and really it's the area that street trees live in, and it's usually between the curb and the sidewalk. Really, the history of parkways is they were developed so that cities could provide street trees. It was sort of a garden city approach, if you will, where street trees are. And in the past, lawn has been used below street trees, but in this day and age, we have water issues, and the kind of lawn approach should be rethought. The design approach is really minimalist and really attempting to use minimal water, but also there's a kind of theme that I wanted to present, which is really showing off what a front garden could look like with a water conservation approach. When I finished this parkway behind me, it was very minimal, and so I added some cobbles for a walkway to help break up the expanse. And then really the design approach gives emphasis to the front garden for this neighborhood. You notice I didn't put a hedge in front of here, but I really wanted it to be a garden for the neighborhood, really showing what you can do with succulents and other ornamental grasses that are drought tolerant. When I thought about the parkway strip, I was thinking, how could I save water? I was using maybe 600 gallons a month in the hottest part of the summer to water lawn in this parkway, so I thought about a very dramatic approach. So what I did is took all the grass out. We then replaced the grass with decomposed granite. Then we added 2 street trees, they are queen palms on this particular block, to help break up this parkway. So we took out the grass, put decomposed granite down, added 2 street trees with some nice wells with lots of compost and good stuff in it. And then I was looking at a very dramatic savings on my water bill. Probably I saved 20% on my water bill because the parkway strip that I developed uses almost no water. It uses street trees that are very drought tolerant. It also shows off my drought tolerant succulent garden here downtown that everyone enjoys, and for me it's very enjoyable because I really am using less resources. There's this thing about parkways is you don't want to grow anything that's going to be a trip hazard for people, so no plant really wants to get over 8 inches in height. Also, another interesting thing is pets, dogs that walk along the sidewalk, tend not to go to the bathroom on my particular parkway. It doesn't look very lush for them, so that's a huge thing. And then really my maintenance efforts have really been lowered. I only have to sweep this parkway maybe twice a year and just use very minimal water on these street trees. And so it's really worked out to be a benefit for water conservation and a benefit for the whole neighborhood.
With this approach to parkways, you can create a simple and water-wise buffer between the sidewalk and the street. Remember to find out what types of plants your water district recommends for parkways. Next up is the first segment of a special Garden-Wise series that will show a local home landscape project from concept to completion. This project happens to be in the Santa Barbara Foothills, which creates some special considerations for landscaping. Here we are in the Santa Barbara foothills. This whole neighborhood was burned in the 2008 Tea Fire. And the owners here have been kind enough to let us film the process of landscaping, from the concept and the design to the completion and the installation. What's the first step to coming up with a landscape design? The first step is a site analysis or an environmental analysis, essentially getting to know the site. We look what kind of soils are here, what's the existing vegetation, are there places that are used by wildlife, how can we protect and restore those existing wildlife corridors. We look at the views, the exposure of the different areas, every little detail that we can pick up about the spirit of this place. So after the site analysis, then we go through the design process with the owners, figure out what they want to do, and find something that'll thrive using nature as part of the design. So let's go inside. This is the planting plan, and I tried to incorporate your desire for plants with interesting color year-round, with nice textures. I know you liked the agave and the gray agaves. Wanted a few fruit trees so you could have citrus throughout the year. And, of course, most importantly, incorporating the fire-smart landscape that's required by the city. So I'll just go through the landscape design here and describe the different plants and how they're used and the effects that I'm trying to accomplish by the composition. Starting on the front slope, which is pretty steep, and as we observed last time I was here, incredibly clayey soil, which I know you wanted lavender, but unfortunately in the clay soil that's just not going to do well. So I chose two plants as ground covers, which are native spreading plants that I think will have a nice fine texture, and they're indicated by the hatches. So this hatch is Achillea, which is the common yarrow with white flowers. It's fairly low growing, and it'll hopefully create just sort of a mat of nice gray textured, light textured foliage kind of throughout the center. And I'm imagining it as a stripe or a swath kind of through the center. And the edges wouldn't be hard edges. It would sort of grow into everything around it. And again, the hope is that it'll spread over time. And combined with this plant, which is this hatch, the California aster, another low-growing plant with fine texture that will bloom at the end of the summer. So that's kind of the ground covers. It's real simple. And then the focus plants, or the plants that are going to kind of draw your eye from far away, are the agave attenuatas, the gray ones that you liked. So as you guys saw in the plan, there's going to be a blanket of gray and green ground cover through here. We'll take out these two Potacerum undulatum, which can also be an invasive plant here.
The gophers are killing them.
The gophers are killing them. And then the two agaves would be right up kind of in the center there. Another one in front of that wall I think would be nice because it'll look architectural and highlight in front of the wall. You need something to take your eye away from that wall. And then in the center there'll be kind of where these two are, a nice big clump of those agave celsiae, which are a little bit lower and have red on the tips. So it'll just be some variety with the succulents. And I think they'll really pop out with the background of the low-growing, fine-textured asters and yarrow. The back area is such a challenge because it's incredibly steep. That's a 30% slope, and the soil barely even stays in place. So what you're going to need to do is put down erosion control fabric. And I actually have a detail here showing how that works. It's kind of like a blanket that goes over the slope, and it's made out of jute. So you start at the top and stake it in, and then roll these big rolls of jute netting down and stake it in with irrigation stakes all the way down. And it's this woven fabric that actually holds the soil in place until the roots of the plants can move in and hold the soil in place themselves. So it's going to be really important to put this jute netting down on that back slope. And then lastly on the slope, an important element which I'm excited about is the rain garden and the habitat garden, which will be planted with the mimulus, the monkey flower that you liked, and a couple other native plants, juncus, which is a California native plant that survives really well in high water conditions and in low water conditions, so it's great for a rain garden. And those plants will filter the water during a rainstorm and keep a lot of the runoff and erosion out of the creek. And the idea is to slow the water down and let it sort of percolate through those plants so it doesn't just swoosh all the runoff and hydrocarbons from the road and also soil into the creek. But initially, I think the most important part as far as filtration is this flat spot, which you've already got, which is great. The fruit trees are scattered kind of near the property line over here. They have to be 18 feet apart for the fire regulations. So kind of scooted one up on that hillside and then put one over there. And those would be fed by the Laundry to Landscape Greywater system coming out of the, out of the washer. So that works really well because all of the plants here will be low water use plants, and then the 2 fruit trees will be watered by the Greywater, so it'll be a great way to recycle the water that would normally go into the sewer. We've got here is a gravel patio through here. So I wanted to, this is kind of an interesting shape, this triangle, and this is on the west side, so it'll get some nice afternoon sun. I thought if you wanted a more private hangout spot, this is the one place that's already sort of flat that is semi-private. So in the design, this is basically covered with gravel, and there's a little planter cutout on the edge right here where I wanted to put your bird of paradise as a specimen plant, something that you'd see a lot and be close to the house. It's great that this section of the house has been designed to be so fire smart, because if and when there is another fire, chances are it's going to come up this hillside, and when the fire comes up the hill, it goes incredibly fast. So your architects and builders have designed an overhang and a deck here that's totally fireproof. We don't want to put any plants or anything under this that might catch on fire. It's extremely important that when you have an overhang, that there's nothing flammable underneath.
The first step, landscape design, is complete. Using site analysis, all of the elements within and surrounding the home have been considered to create a blueprint for appropriate design and installation. Next time, you'll see irrigation system installation as well as some planting as we begin to paint on the blank canvas. Up next is another new regular Garden-Wise segment. What tree is that? Landscape architect Bob Cunningham tells us all about one of Santa Barbara's iconic trees, the Jacaranda.
What tree is that? What tree is that? Ah, what tree is that? What tree is that?
Hi, my name is Bob Cunningham. I'm a landscape architect. Been here for a number of years practicing in Santa Barbara. And I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite trees, the Jacaranda. Standing under a pretty big one right now. This one's probably 35 feet tall with a spread of about the same. I would consider the Jacaranda to be a trouble-free tree, but trouble-free is a relative term. I'm a strong advocate of the right plant in the right place. The Jacaranda, even though it's a beautiful tree when it's in bloom, goes through a period of flower drop, which can be very bothersome. It's a big nuisance. The last thing you want to do is plant one of these things over a public sidewalk, over a parking lot, or right outside your front door. It's a semi-deciduous tree, which means that it doesn't necessarily drop all of its leaves. It will turn kind of a chartreusey, orangish gold this time of year. Even though it's of tropical origins, it was originally growing in Brazil and has spread all over the world into subtropical and tropical regions. It's quite drought tolerant. Probably the most spectacular collection of Jacaranda is in Pretoria, South Africa, where there are an estimated 55,000 of these trees planted over the years. Most of them are large, mature specimens, and when they bloom, it seems the entire city is blanketed in purple. We've got over 2,600 of them. Over 2,500 of those are street trees, so as you're driving up and down the streets of town, you'll see quite a few of them. The best place to plant a Jacaranda tree, if you don't want to have to deal with the flower drop, is over a deep ground cover such as this, where the flowers will simply drop through and form mulch on the ground. It will bloom starting in late spring, and sometimes you'll see trees blooming all the way into the fall. Many trees will drop all of their leaves and then they'll sprout their flowers, so that you'll see a bare tree with an abundance of purple blooms. And at that point in time, it's just spectacular to stand away from the tree looking up toward the blue sky and see those purple flowers against the blue sky. In spite of the numerous issues with regard to leaf drop flower drop, seed pods, this is still, I have to say, my favorite tree. I've always dreamed of being able to live on a hillside and on my huge property look down upon a grove of jacaranda trees with their spectacular blooms. It's just a wonderful sight, and I think everybody should have that opportunity.
What tree is that? What tree is that? Ah, what tree is that? What tree is that?
What tree is that? What tree is that? Catchy, isn't it? In future episodes, other local tree experts will talk about more of Santa Barbara's beautiful trees. So, we've learned about manzanitas and jacarandas, how to develop your parkway to save water and make it beautiful. We introduced you to my Green the Burbs project, and you'll get to see development of a new residential landscape in future episodes. There are tons of resources online to help you live green and to save water. Visit sbwater.org for tips, or if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Call us at 564-5311. I'm Meg West, and keep it green, Santa Barbara.